Well, Dr. Robert Love, great to connect here. And we're talking about how to slow down aging. But, first, of course, we got to ask what are the major root cause factors for aging? And really, I mean, all of us are aging, but what's accelerating the aging process in the average individual?
That's a great question. And first, Dr. David Jockers, it's such an honor to be here with you. I've been a fan of your work for years, and so I've watched you, and then I've read your newsletter and your graphics, and just I really admire you and admire your work and what you're contributing to the world. And so it's an honor to be here with you and be part of your program. Um, so aging, it's interesting because it's different than what it used to be in the United States, in particular in the United States now, as many of us know. We are a lot less healthy than we were 30 or 40 years ago. I've seen pictures of, from the beach, from beach pictures of the 70s and the 80s. People are pretty fit and healthy. And now people are overweight and obese. And this is not only, obesity is not just, it's not just extra weight to carry. And it's not just, doesn't look good. It's not just hard on your joints, but it accelerates aging. And the things that are causing obesity are accelerating aging. And I want to cite the work of Dr. Casey Means. Her and her brother, Callie Means, recently came up with a great book, Good Energy, and they've discussed why this is happening. And in part, it's a big part of our food and our mitochondria, which is something that you talk about a lot on your podcast and in your newsletters, is our mitochondria are sick because they're not getting good energy. And so one of the main things that's causing aging in the United States in particular is our low quality food. And what that's doing is not only it's impairing mitochondrial health. So two things: it's impairing mitochondrial health. Number two, it's increasing inflammation. Inflammation is one of the primary risk factors of Alzheimer's disease, and it's a major cause of aging. So those two mechanisms, at a minimum, are happening because of our tainted food supply that's filled with chemicals from in our food, air, and water. And then pesticides, and then the low nutrition in the food. So many issues with that. And so that is one of the major causes of aging that's new, aside from just what ordinary aging would be 100 years ago. It's these man-made toxins that in our food, air, and water, in particular our food, that are increasing inflammation and impairing our mitochondrial health.
Yeah, for sure. So we're all aging, but we're being exposed to so many more oxidative elements, right? So many more of these toxic chemicals. And so all of us, we have a certain toxic threshold. And for many people, we're exceeding that. And so what do we do? How do we reduce our exposure to these toxic chemicals?
That is the great question. And so let's start with food. Here are the foods that most people can eat and they'll be healthy: organic fruits, organic vegetables, some sort of healthy protein, ideally grass-fed beef, grass-fed lamb, wild-caught salmon, sardines, herring. Dr. Bredesen talks about the smash fish. Dr. Bredesen, I think, will go down in history as the person who figured out Alzheimer's disease. He's reversed Alzheimer's, started back in 2017. Smash fish: salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and herring. These are fatty fish that are low in mercury. It's the smash fish. Or pastured eggs. So eating organic fruits, organic vegetables, those healthy forms of protein. And kind of that's it. If you eat those things, and you can kind of eat as much as you like, you will likely be very healthy. And so the key thing is getting rid of the ultra processed food.
Mm.
Avoid the ultra processed food. A lot of people don't know this. I learned this from Casey and Callie Means from the Joe Rogan podcast. Big Tobacco bought major food companies in the 1980s, in particular 1986. So Philip Morris and R.J. Reynolds, so that's Marlboro, that's Camel, those cigarette companies, they bought big food companies, and they took their tobacco scientists who thought, okay, how can we make tobacco more addictive? Interesting side note: cigarettes have been designed to be addictive, not just to taste good and feel good, but they've added sugar to them, they've added chemicals to them, whether it's the wrapper in the tobacco itself, that makes it more addictive compared to just tobacco that the Native Americans were smoking. So it's been engineered to be actually not necessarily more harmful, but it is more harmful with all the chemicals. So they took those same people, they said, okay, take an Oreo, make the Oreo more addictive, make the Oreo more tasty, make it more palatable, have it release more neurotransmitters in our brain when they eat it, have it really set off these bells in our brain that say, oh yeah, eat that. And so they removed a lot. Remember, we used to have sugar in food. Now it's high fructose corn syrup. High fructose corn syrup makes us more hungry. which is
Mm,
fascinating. You eat something that's really fattening, that's rich in calories, and you feel more hungry with the high
mm,
fructose corn syrup. So it's got high fructose corn syrup in them. It's got these chemicals that make it more addictive. So that's a major source. So one, you got to avoid the ultra processed food. Anything by Nabisco and Kraft has likely been touched by big tobacco scientists to make it more addictive. Not necessarily more dangerous, but by impact, it is more dangerous. And they've reduced the nutrition in it. You know, pesticides gone way up since the 1980s. Why? Well, big tobacco is really, really smart. And they said, well, how can we make food cheaper? I know, we'll grow food cheaper. How do we do that? Well, we use more pesticides. How do we get that legal? Well, we know how to make stuff legal. We're big tobacco. We got, half of Congress is in our pocket. We know what to do. And so really, really smart people have engineered our food system for maximum profit,
mm,
minimum health, to the great detriment of the American people, and hopefully we're rectifying that. There's I'm not a fan of Trump politically, but I'm really a big fan of RFK and what he wants to do with
mm,
our food system. And so God bless RFK for trying to
mhm,
get the pesticides out of our food, air, and water, getting rid of food dyes like yellow number 5, red number 40, legalizing peptides and stem cells. And so our
mm,
government, for some reason, has criminalized healthy things like peptides and stem cells, and then they've made legal pesticides in our food and additives in our food that are illegal in Europe, because of business interests that are not in our best interest. And so that's the best way to limit our exposure is avoid the ultra processed foods, eat lots of organic fruits and vegetables, a healthy form of protein, and try to just eat those foods and avoid
mm.
avoid packaged foods. And then with your water, distilled water or reverse osmosis water. Fluoride in the water. I've been talking about fluoride since I was in grad school. This was 20 years ago, 18 years ago. The science has been clear for so long that fluoride is detrimental to our brain. It's detrimental to children's IQ in large studies in China. It's bad for our bones. It's bad for our teeth. So you want to drink reverse osmosis or distilled water, well water. It likely has glyphosate in it. I don't know if you know this, Dr. Jockers. In 2000, was it 2011? For 2011 or 2016, the EPA knew that glyphosate was in our rainwater. That's amazing. I just
Mm.
heard about it this year.
I didn't do anything
Glyphosate,
about it.
that's such a big
Yeah,
deal. If it's in our rainwater, it means it's everywhere.
yeah.
And if it's everywhere, that means all water could potentially be contaminated, which means pretty much every human living in the United States needs to be drinking reverse osmosis or distilled water because it could have glyphosate in it. That's a neurotoxin.
Mm.
And most people don't know this. And so unfortunately, our groundwater, our well water has been contaminated as well. So you got to be drinking reverse osmosis or distilled water to not be exposed to the glyphosate.
Yeah, so glyphosate is this ubiquitous toxin. It's a herbicide, right? That's sprayed. So your conventional farming, they're using glyphosate. In fact, a lot of people use it on their lawns as well. And there's been class action lawsuits for people, basically landscapers and people that were using glyphosate or Roundup, right? Which is glyphosate basically on their lawns and it causing different types of cancers. And so people are using that, but then, you can even be actively trying to avoid it, but still have some level of exposure to it. So it's an issue. And so with our food, what you're saying is we want food that has maximal nutrients, minimal toxins. So going as organic as possible and going with real foods, real foods as organic as possible, like you were talking about, and then doing everything we can to try to avoid toxins. So that means the air that we breathe, the water that we drink, the food that we eat. So if we go organic as organic as possible, we're minimizing toxins in our food. If we filter our water, we're minimizing our toxins in our water. Really good filtration, like you talked about, reverse osmosis or distilled. And then, trying to do the best we can with the air that we breathe, getting an air purifier or something along those lines is a really good idea as well in our home. Getting outside, right? Spending time outdoors. I'm sure
Goodness.
you're a big advocate of that as well, right?
I love outside. I'm human,
Yeah,
right? To any human,
absolutely.
if you don't screw them up, it's going to like to be outside because that's what our ancestors did. That's who survived, right? Our ancestors who stayed inside. I don't know what the equivalent of playing video games would be. I guess staying inside, just playing whatever games children played then inside. They died, right? We need to be outside. We need to be physical. We need to be exposed to the sun. The vitamin D levels are really terrifying. About 50%. No, excuse me, 40% of white Americans and 70% of Black Americans are low in vitamin D, which means they're
Mm,
not getting sufficient. sunshine. And so the darker your skin, generally speaking, the more sunshine you need to make enough vitamin D. And people are spending so much time inside. In fact, children are spending so much time inside that they are developing bad eyesight because they're just looking at a screen like you and I are doing right now. Well, that's a couple feet away. But outside, you got things that are 3 feet, 10 feet, 50 feet, 100 feet, 1,000 feet away, and our eyes are constantly adjusting. We're moving. And so children are now having impaired eyesight from spending too much time inside. It's really terrible. One thing I wanted to mention about aging, is insulin, is blood sugar, is insulin spikes.
Yeah.
And then you live very near the great city of Atlanta. I'm a big fan of that city. I think your city actually holds the key to potentially ending type 2 diabetes. And then one person in particular by the name of Warren Buffett. I'll explain that in just a moment. So the insulin spikes associated with drinking a sugary beverage like Coca-Cola, these can create inflammation, right? Coca-Cola is high in, it used to be high in sugar. Now it's high in high fructose corn syrup, which very quickly becomes stored as fat. But so when we drink a Coca-Cola, it has lots of sugar, but no fiber. So it spikes our insulin, spikes our blood glucose. That can create inflammation. That creates aging, as well as increased risk of type 2 diabetes, also increased risk of Alzheimer's disease. So Warren Buffett and his company, Berkshire Hathaway, own more Coca-Cola than anybody else. They don't own all of it, but they are the biggest shareholder of Coca-Cola. I think Warren's got enough money. And frankly, Berkshire Hathaway is doing really, really well. There are plenty of, I think they could switch the sweeteners in Coca-Cola, certainly from high fructose corn syrup to back to sugar. If you go to Mexico, the Coca-Cola in Mexico is actually made with sugar. It's actually healthier in other countries than it is the United States, which I think is ridiculous. Coca-Cola is an American company. We should have the best Coke in the world, the worst. So that would be one. But number two would be, what if they put something like allulose in it? A healthy sweetener that is 90% fewer calories than regular sugar, almost as sweet, but won't spike your insulin, won't spike your blood glucose. Diabetics could actually drink it then. Or they could use allulose and monk fruit sugar. They could use those both. It would taste almost identical to Coca-Cola. Almost no one knows the difference. It would be more expensive, maybe a penny a can, maybe 2 pennies a can, some small amount. And that could greatly reduce people's sugar load and help reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes. And if Coca-Cola does it, all the other companies could follow too. So literally, I think this could come down to one person and one company to really help end the diabetes epidemic in the United States, is getting Coca-Cola to change to allulose and monk fruit sugar, allulose, monk fruit sugar, stevia, some combination of that.
Yeah.
Warren Buffett could be the one to instigate this. And then if Coke does it, then Pepsi's going to do it. And then all the other soda companies are going to do it. And this could be huge because there's so many young children drinking soda, and it's just ruining their insulin sensitivity.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there is a brand Zevia, right? That's been growing. I mean, they're really, that company is really growing, and they're stevia flavored soft drinks basically, right? And so you're going to have less blood sugar, insulin spike. I'm still an advocate of taking time away from that. At least throughout the day, so you're not constantly depending on the dopamine hits, but certainly a lot better. And then consuming, enjoying something that's sweetened with a meal, right? I think that's great, right? Stevia sweetened during kind of your eating window or with a meal, I think is fantastic. I know my kids really enjoy those Zevias, right? And so that's the alternative. They've never drank an actual soft drink. Like we've
Oh,
never.
really? That's so smart.
Yeah, I would never give my kids an actual soft drink. I'm sure at some point they'll get their hands on something, but right now while they're young, they've never touched anything like that.
A mentor of mine, Eben Pagan, who's been in the internet education space for a long time. He stood on stage on a seminar, this would have been 15 years ago, and said, my young daughter, he said, I would just as soon put cocaine in front of her as I would refined sugar. And I thought he was crazy for saying it then. And right now, at this point, I agree, because cocaine's a lot harder to get.
Yeah.
But sugar's everywhere. And so your kid being addicted to sugar, I think, is a lot more dangerous than being addicted to cocaine. Now, I'm not advocating anyone do cocaine. I think that's very dangerous, really bad idea.
Yeah.
And I think sugar for children is a really dangerous, bad idea.
Oh, yeah.
It's everywhere. There's no age restriction. They could go anywhere, get as much sugar as they want. We know it's dangerous. We know it's addictive. We know it increases the risk of almost every chronic disease. And there's no limit on how much a child can buy and eat. And I think that's really dangerous and scary and really bad policy.
100%, really big factor. So let's go back to food. What are the best foods that you recommend? You listed a bunch earlier, but what are your top foods for healthy aging, healthy brain function?
So I'm a scientist. So I'm a neuroscientist. So my perspective on this has really changed. A couple of years ago, I was not a big fan of the carnivore diet. And the more I've learned about it, I think the carnivore diet intermittently can be really helpful. Number one, it's a detoxer. So if you're just eating grass-fed beef and grass-fed lamb and wild-caught salmon, you're not eating food with glyphosate in it. You're not eating any. You're greatly reducing your pesticide load. You're not eating a bunch of gluten. You're avoiding a lot of environmental toxins by eating really high quality meat. And we can live off meat, which is it's really interesting. You
Hmm.
can't live off broccoli. You can't live off of just cauliflower or walnuts, but you can live on just beef. It has all the nutrients you need to actually be healthy for months or years. I don't recommend staying on carnivore forever, but that I think is an interesting diet to experiment on. I've had friends, especially if you're overweight or obese, I've had friends just drop 20 pounds on carnivore over the course of a couple months, which is really interesting. And they're not hungry.
Hmm.
So I think that's something to experiment with. And our mutual friend, Dr. Isaac Jones, who's a fantastic doctor, he's mentioned that he's done carnivore intermittently, and that's been part of his longevity practice. Excuse me. So that's something interesting to try that I'm now more open to than I was before. I thought it was really a silly idea, but we're now learning. Well, it's clear now in the science. Eating lots of fat, and lots of protein is actually not harmful to you. What actually increases fat storage in your body and blood triglycerides, which is fat in the blood, is actually carbs.
Hmm.
Doctors didn't tell you this. Oh, you have high triglycerides in your blood. What does that mean? Eat less fat? Well, that's kind of what doctors said, but actually, it's carbs that increase blood fats. It's the carbs. So if you have high triglycerides, you want to lower your carbs, which is really interesting. And so a diet low in carbs, um, our and the agricultural revolution in for humans happened about 10,000 years ago. Prior to that, we were mostly eating wild plants and meat when we could catch it. And I think getting back to that kind of diet, our genes understand what to do with that. Our
Hmm.
genes know what to do with plants grown from Mother Nature that are not wheat, right? We cultivated wheat, but that's kind of an semi-unnatural food for us to eat. So organic fruits and vegetables, and and healthy animal protein. If you want to be vegan, you're probably going to need to supplement with iron and vitamin B, and as well as probably some protein in there as well. It's hard to be
Yeah.
vegan and healthy if you don't know what you're doing, but you certainly can do it. There's good reasons to be vegan. So that's the kind of diet as natural as possible, just like our ancestors ate organic fruits and vegetables primarily, and then healthy protein, whatever that is for you. So my favorite foods in particular are the anti-inflammatory foods. So you can have, so for example, some spices. We got curcumin. If you can afford it and you're not on a curcumin supplement, I think you're really missing the boat. There's so much data on curcumin, lowering inflammation, reducing the risk of Alzheimer's disease, improving memory. It's so good that even helps protect against the dangers of obesity. So they had two groups of mice, and they fed them the standard American diet, high fat, high sugar diet, which promotes weight gain. Half the mice got curcumin, half the mice did not. At the end of the study, they dissected them. The mice given curcumin had healthier organs. The curcumin actually protected their organs from the damage of the obesity, from the dangers, from the inflammation, all the bad things that happen when you're obese. That's amazing. So anyone who's overweight or obese, a curcumin supplement would very likely, based upon the research, be protective of your tissues and organs as you begin to lose the weight. That's a really, really good idea. Very inexpensive. My favorite brand is Fusionary Formulas. I do have a financial relationship with them. I know the owner, Dr. Shivani Gupta. She's great.
Hmm.
And so I have a financial relationship with that company, but that's the one that I take. But any curcumin supplement, you want about 1,000 milligrams a day. You want it with black pepper, and you want it curcumin, not just turmeric. And then ideally take it with fat. That'll increase absorption. Other anti-inflammatory spices, cinnamon, Ceylon cinnamon, Ceylon cinnamon, 1,000 milligrams of that a day. That's great. Also is good for memory. Also good for antibacterial, antifungal, tons of benefits on that. So there's a lot of anti-inflammatory spices and then anti-inflammatory foods. Fish oil is really great, right? Fish oil is tremendous for the brain, but also can lower blood triglycerides. That's really great. If you've had a head injury, 1,000 milligrams a day
Hmm.
of DHA. Of course, by the way, I'm not a medical doctor, not giving you medical advice. Check with your medical doctor before doing anything that affects your health. This is based upon the science, and this is what I do. I take 3,000 milligrams a day of DHA, which is a specific type of fatty acid found in fish oil.
Hmm.
Um, Most of them have about 500 to 1,000. So I take a 3x dose, especially if you had a brain injury or trouble with the brain. That's a really good idea to take high levels of that. Dr. Andrew Huberman, a neuroscientist from Stanford, talked about the 3,000 milligrams per day of DHA. It's being really good. And so and then other anti-inflammatory foods, which are generally speaking, mostly organic fruits and vegetables, and then foods that are really good in omega-3 fatty acids like wild caught salmon, sardines, herring, and so forth.
Yeah, it's great. You went through a lot of stuff right there, and I'm with you. Getting a blood sugar stabilizing diet, prioritizing protein, I think, is so key. Healthy fats, like you were discussing there, getting those antioxidants and lots of colorful fruits and vegetables and herbs and spices, like you were talking about. You mentioned several different supplements. How about mushrooms? I know there's been a lot of research
I love mushrooms.
recently with mushrooms and how they impact brain health as well.
Yes, full disclosure, I have a company that sells a mushroom supplement. So just I want people to know that, but the data on mushrooms is great. Research by Li Fang and colleagues out of Singapore, published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease, found that those who eat mushrooms 3 times a week or more have approximately a 40% reduction in their risk of Alzheimer's disease. So eating mushrooms for dinner 3 nights a week reduces the risk of Alzheimer's disease by 40%. Well, that's gosh darn great. So many benefits of mushrooms. My favorite mushroom is lion's mane mushrooms. The data on lion's mane mushrooms are really impressive. Lion's mane improves memory in both human and animal studies. Lion's mane reduces stress and anxiety. Lion's mane in double-blind, placebo-controlled studies in humans reduces depression and anxiety. There's a really cool study on cookies. They gave people a lion's mane cookie or a placebo cookie for 30 days. The group that took the lion's mane cookie had less depression and anxiety over the 30 days. That's really neat. Imagine eating mushrooms or taking a mushroom supplement instead of an antidepressant and having that be just as beneficial. That's amazing. And I'm not saying discontinue any medications. I'm just trying to provide the science
Hmm.
for people to make a more informed decision. And my favorite benefit of lion's mane, improves sleep. It helps people fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and fall back to sleep. So many Americans struggle with sleep. Sleep is essential for a healthy brain, and sleep is the ultimate anti-aging tool. Brian Johnson, the billionaire, or not quite billionaire, 700 millionaire founder of Venmo, he's now an anti-aging expert. Excuse me. And he mentioned that sleep is the number one anti-aging drug. He's like, just like,
Yeah.
so lion's mane can help with sleep. That's a really darn big deal. I recently spoke with Dr. Michael Bruce, the sleep doctor, who's a world-renowned expert. He has a new book coming out. He's fantastic. I asked him about lion's mane. He loves it. I asked Dr. David Perlmutter, brain expert, about lion's mane. So much data on lion's mane, on mushrooms, and the benefits for the brain. And then my supplement is a lion's mane supplement. That's lion's mane, reishi, shiitake, maitake, turkey tail chaga, just a blend of medicinal mushrooms that people are getting a great result with. So I'm a huge fan of eating mushrooms. I love mushroom supplements. Those are really safe and effective and doing a really good job. And then what we're unlocking, David, and you've seen this just in your time in the healthcare world, is the natural solutions are so much safer, often more effective than the artificial chemical
Hmm.
solutions,
Yeah.
right? So people are saying, "Well, I need to lose weight. Oh, take Ozempic." Well, how about you eat healthy food? And how about that healthy food is from Mother Nature? If you believe in God, what God put on this earth, right? The organic fruits and vegetables and the animals that we can eat. Why don't you just eat those rather than the human engineered foods? Um, and things like mushrooms are so wonderful. We're just learning about. I mean, mushroom research has gone through the roof because there's so many great benefits of them. So very safe. So many different varieties. I mean, it's an entire kingdom of um, of living organisms, right? Right. We got plants, we got animals, we got fungi, and then what are they? Sponges and mollusks, and then there's something
Hmm.
else. But it's an entire kingdom of organism that we're just learning about. It's some of its amazing benefits for both the brain, body, and then a lot of mushrooms have anti-inflammatory benefits. Lion's mane, for example, improves mitochondrial health and reduces inflammation. Inflammation is one of the primary causes of aging. So lion's mane can even have an anti-aging benefit as well.
Yeah, so good. And anything that helps promote good sleep. Our society's not sleeping well. And when we sleep, if we have good circadian rhythm where, we're getting to bed earlier, we're turning off blue lights at night. Blue lights are considered now blue light exposure at night, or in a sense, bright light, the kind of bright light exposure that most people are being exposed to from devices, or if they're inside different office buildings and things like that. That blue light exposure is considered a carcinogen, right? And so it increases your risk of cancer, but also Alzheimer's, neurodegenerative conditions. And so getting out of blue light after dark, like during right now, we're in the middle of the day here. We're talking no problem with blue light exposure. It's kind of like it's telling us it's daytime, it's sunlight. But when the sunlight goes down, getting out of that bright light, dimming all the lights in your house, so critical. Setting up circadian rhythm function is so good, so important, because you need really good melatonin release. When we talk about anti-aging, I think about melatonin and human growth hormone. If we can optimize melatonin and human growth hormone. Melatonin has the mitochondrial protective component. It's one of the it's an we produce it ourselves, and it slips into the double membrane of the mitochondria, where it is incredibly protective as an antioxidant, protecting the mitochondria so they can function well. It also triggers mitophagy, where the mitochondria repair themselves, and mitochondrial biogenesis. And then growth hormone is more tissue based, right? Organ tissue based. And it's telling the body, preserve lean body tissue, preserve muscle tissue, burn fat, preserve bone tissue, preserve collagen tissue in our skin, our joints, right? Preserve that. And then let's burn fat. Let's promote healthy immune response, right? And we get a nice boost of all of that if we're sleeping really well and doing all the other things you talked about, keeping toxins under control, blood sugar stabilizing diet. And if we're doing that, every single night, that's going to really give us a great anti-aging boost. So powerful stuff.
What are your thoughts? I know we're running out of time. What are your thoughts on melatonin supplements? I'm a big fan. I
Yeah.
take a big dose for the anti-cancer benefits, and then for the protective benefits, not just for sleep, but for all these things. I'm taking 20 milligrams, which I know is
Yeah.
way more than you need for sleep. But
No, I think it's fine. Like I think some people, I actually do really well with melatonin. My wife doesn't. So I think there are some people, just like anything else, right? It can be personalized, right? We might see research that says, such and such, melatonin's great, lion's mane's great, and it may work great for you, but then it may not work as good for your spouse, right? And so you kind of have to personalize it. You try it for yourself and see how you feel. And then also, in a sense, with some of these things, you can alternate going on and off, right? Or dosing it. And so I do really great with supplemental melatonin. I feel like I sleep deeper and better, right? My wife does really well with GABA, right? Taking a GABA supplement, which is an inhibitory neurotransmitter, kind of the brakes on the brain, helps her fall asleep faster, more effectively. She takes that right before bed. So you personalize it. There's a lot of tools out there, and it's just a matter of getting the right tools for you.
fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, great stuff.
Thank you. I've had a lot of debates with you about melatonin. I said, look, it does really well for me. The data shows it's really safe. I get it doesn't work for you. Do what works for you. I totally agree.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then, of course, with a lot of these things, you can get a lot of them from nature. So you can optimize your melatonin release by getting infrared exposure. Infrared actually helps boost melatonin, uh, mitochondrial melatonin throughout the day. So, like when you're in sun, you're getting infrared exposure when you're out in the sun. And then also, if you're using an infrared sauna or let's say a PEMF infrared mat, or I have an office chair here when I sit on my chair, and it actually has infrared heat, like it heats up with infrared. So I'm
Really? Is that a
exposing my
particular type of
body.
chair? Or is that a mat you have on your chair?
Yeah, it's a mat. It has PEMF, right? So pulse electromagnetic frequency and infrared. So I'm getting that infrared
Is there a particular type of mat?
technology.
Can you share the name, or is that not something you can do on on
There's
your
several companies that do this, but this one is a higher dose. This company's higher dose
higher
that
dose?
has that. And it's great. And so getting infrared exposure, again, the best way, the way our ancestors did was just being out in the sun, getting out in nature, getting out in the sun. That's also a way to get healthy pulsed electromagnetic frequencies as well coming from nature. But if you're not able to do that, if you're working in an office all day, right, there's tools, right? And so we've got, PMF mats, office chairs, right? It's not an actual office chair, it's a mat you put on your chair. But we've got different tools, infrared saunas, phenomenal technology that you can utilize to get the benefits of that and secrete, your own mitochondrial melatonin, and of course, getting out of the blue light so you can optimize your growth hormone release as well at night. So critical. But Robert, this has been great. Any last words of inspiration? Where can people find you?
Oh, thank you. So you're talking about office tools, the standing desk and
Yeah.
the treadmill below the desk. Such great tools. People, I have a team member who is overweight, borderline obese. She said, you getting just walking on her treadmill is
Mm,
getting her 10,000 steps. And what good is
love
that
it.
doing for her? Massive good. Getting 10,000 steps, especially if you're low activity, especially if you're
Yeah.
overweight or obese, amazing good. Get the treadmill for 100, $150, put it on your desk and just get your steps in. Please. It's so not only good for your health, but great anti-aging. We need more steps. We live such a sedentary lifestyle. So people can find me at so I'm on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. If you just search Robert Love, I'm the first Robert Love that comes up. I have about 2 million on TikTok, over a million on Instagram, and over a million on Facebook. So I do a lot of free education on health and wellness, preventing Alzheimer's disease, slowing down aging. And so I'd love to share. So free Lots of free information there. And for those interested in my supplements, if you go to either my name, robertlove.net or roarlionsmane.com, and I'd love to offer your viewers a 10%, actually $10 off an order of my Lion's Mane. Just use the code podcast at checkout. That'll save you $10. I'd love you to try my Lion's Mane, 100% risk-free, comes with a 6-month money-back guarantee. If you don't have better sleep, better memory, if you don't feel better, let me know. I'm happy to refund your money. I just want everyone to try the healing power of mushrooms and the benefits for the brain. They've been so helpful to so many people. And so I just want to make that available to everyone. And then just, if you search my name on the internet, or your favorite social media, I'll likely pop up there.
Well, love that. Guys, check out Dr. Robert Love again. He puts out really great information. Check him out, TikTok, Instagram, wherever you're doing social media, and check out his Lion's Mane product as well. And thanks so much for joining us on this show today.